The easiest promise to break is the one you make before destiny knocks on your door, Nathan Carter often told reporters whenever they asked why the most powerful alpha mafia boss in New York had never married. The answer always sounded simple. He claimed that love created weakness, marriage created targets, and the Carter family had already sacrificed enough for one lifetime. Newspapers repeated his words, business rivals respected them, and even his closest friends stopped questioning his decision. For nearly 15 years, Nathan lived by that single promise inside a quiet mansion overlooking the Hudson River, where every room reflected order, discipline, and complete control. Nothing unexpected ever crossed the front gate without being announced in advance. That changed on a cold autumn evening when dark clouds gathered over the city and heavy rain covered every stone path leading toward the Carter estate. Nathan had just finished reviewing financial reports with the family attorney, Olivia Hayes, before sending everyone home ahead of the approaching storm. The mansion fell unusually silent except for the steady sound of rain striking tall windows. As he prepared to lock away another day of responsibilities, the front doorbell echoed through the entrance hall. The security monitors showed only one young man standing alone beneath a black umbrella. He carried an antique wooden case with both hands, as though it contained something too valuable to risk dropping. Nathan frowned because no visitor had been scheduled. He opened the door only a few inches. Standing outside was a young white Omega with rainwater dripping from neatly combed brown hair onto the shoulders of a navy jacket. Despite looking exhausted after traveling, his calm hazel eyes never left Nathan's face. "My name is Noah Brooks," he said politely. "I believe your grandmother wanted me to bring this to you." Nathan's expression immediately hardened. His grandmother had passed away years earlier, and almost no one outside the Carter family even knew the details surrounding her private affairs. "You have the wrong address," Nathan replied evenly. Noah slowly shook his head. "Before she passed away, someone arranged for this case to remain sealed until today. I restore rare historical manuscripts for museums and private collections. A client asked me to preserve everything inside without opening it. Yesterday, the final instructions arrived, telling me to deliver it here personally." Nathan studied the wooden case more carefully. Its polished surface displayed a faded family crest he had not seen since childhood. Olivia, who had not yet left the property because of the storm, quietly stepped into the hallway after hearing unfamiliar voices. She immediately recognized the carved emblem and looked at Nathan with visible surprise. Noah carefully removed a weathered envelope resting beneath the handle. The paper had yellowed with age, but the elegant handwriting across the front remained unmistakably clear. It was addressed only to Nathan Carter. His heartbeat slowed as he accepted the envelope. The handwriting belonged to his late grandmother. Before Nathan could unfold the letter, Noah looked around the entrance hall with quiet curiosity and smiled almost absent-mindedly. She always said the house felt warmer after the west fireplace was restored. The smile disappeared from Nathan's face. No visitor could possibly know that sentence because his grandmother had spoken those exact words only once, years before the renovation had ever become public. Olivia stared silently at Noah while Nathan slowly opened the antique wooden case. Resting inside black velvet was a single engagement ring that had belonged to his grandmother and had supposedly disappeared decades earlier. The antique engagement ring rested silently inside the velvet-lined case, while the steady rhythm of rain filled the entrance hall. Nathan Carter carefully lifted the ring into the light without taking his eyes off the unmistakable engraving along its inner band. Olivia Hayes stepped closer, adjusting her glasses before quietly nodding. "There is no doubt," she said. "This belonged to your grandmother." Nathan placed the ring back into the case with unusual care. "It disappeared more than 30 years ago," he replied. "No insurance claim ever recovered it." Noah Brooks remained near the doorway, uncertain whether he should stay or leave. "I wish I could explain more," he said honestly. "The collector who hired me never revealed a name. My responsibility was only to preserve everything exactly as I received it. Yesterday, a courier delivered the final instruction telling me to bring the case here tonight and hand it directly to you." Olivia unfolded the weathered letter while Nathan watched every movement. The paper felt fragile with age, yet the handwriting remained elegant and perfectly recognizable. She read aloud. "If you are reading this letter, then the person standing before you has fulfilled a promise that began long before either of you understood its meaning. Trust the ring. Trust the young man. The truth has always been hidden where patience protects history. The letter contained no signature because none was necessary. Nathan recognized every graceful stroke of his grandmother's handwriting. Silence settled across the hall. Noah looked equally confused. "I have never seen that letter before," he admitted. Nathan studied him carefully. There was no sign of deception in the young Omega's voice or expression. Instead, he seemed as surprised as everyone else. Olivia gently examined the ring under a bright desk lamp positioned beside the entrance table. After several quiet moments, she noticed tiny markings beneath the velvet lining inside the wooden case. Using a small pair of archival tweezers from her briefcase, she carefully lifted the fabric without damaging it. Hidden beneath the lining appeared a narrow strip of folded parchment covered with faded handwriting. Nathan unfolded it slowly. The brief message read, "Someone protected this child for many years. Do not let that sacrifice become meaningless." Noah's eyes widened. "Child," he whispered. "Who are they talking about?" Nathan did not answer immediately because another question had already formed in his own mind. If the message referred to Noah, then someone had been quietly watching over him since childhood without ever revealing the reason. Before anyone could continue, Nathan's private phone vibrated across the table. His trusted security director reported unusual activity surrounding several historical properties owned by the Carter family. During the previous 48 hours, a wealthy businessman named Victor Kane had quietly purchased multiple neighboring parcels of land through different investment companies. Nathan frowned because none of those forgotten properties held significant commercial value. Olivia immediately recognized the name. Victor Kane has been collecting abandoned estates connected to old family records across New York and Massachusetts, she explained. No one understands why. Nathan looked from the mysterious message back to Noah. The timing no longer felt like coincidence. Noah carefully closed the wooden case before noticing one final detail. Resting beneath the ring was a tiny folded sheet almost hidden within the corner of the velvet compartment. He gently removed it and handed it to Nathan. Written across the aged paper in the same elegant handwriting were only 8 words that immediately changed the atmosphere inside the mansion. "The answer has always been inside your childhood diary." The final sentence lingered in Nathan Carter's mind long after the rain outside had softened into a quiet drizzle. He folded the small note with careful hands before looking toward the grand staircase that led to the private library on the second floor. Very few people had ever entered that room because it contained generations of Carter family journals, photographs, and personal records. "Wait here," Nathan said calmly. Noah nodded without objection, although curiosity was written plainly across his face. Olivia followed Nathan upstairs, carrying the antique wooden case, while the old floorboards echoed beneath their footsteps. Inside the library, shelves stretched from polished hardwood floors to the high ceiling, filled with carefully preserved books collected over more than a century. Nathan crossed directly to a locked cabinet hidden behind a carved wooden panel and removed a small leather-bound diary covered in faded blue fabric. "I wrote this when I was 10, he explained quietly. "My grandmother insisted that I record something every week because she believed memories disappear faster than people realize." Olivia carefully turned each delicate page beneath the warm reading lamp. At first, everything appeared ordinary. The entries described school lessons, horseback riding, family dinners, and quiet afternoons spent exploring the estate. Then Nathan noticed one page where the paper looked slightly thicker than the others. Holding it toward the light revealed faint impressions beneath the ink. Olivia gently placed a transparent archival sheet over the page and lightly brushed graphite across its surface. Slowly, hidden writing appeared where invisible pressure marks had remained trapped for decades. Nathan stared in disbelief. His own childhood handwriting had unknowingly revealed a message left beneath a missing page. It described his grandmother introducing him to a young child during a private gathering at the estate, someone she called our future friend. Nathan searched his memory, but the event remained frustratingly unclear. The following sentence caught everyone's attention. It mentioned a unique crest embroidered onto the child's jacket, identical to the faded symbol carved into the antique wooden case now resting downstairs. Olivia immediately photographed the page for preservation before carefully closing the diary. Someone deliberately removed the original page, she observed. The impressions remained because you wrote on the sheet above it. Nathan frowned. Who would remove only one page from a child's diary? Before Olivia could answer, Noah quietly entered the library doorway carrying 2 cups of fresh coffee. He apologized for interrupting, but explained that one of the house staff had insisted everyone should have something warm after the long evening. As Nathan accepted the cup, Noah's attention drifted toward an old display cabinet filled with family artifacts. Without hesitation, he walked directly to one shelf and stopped beside a weathered silver compass. "That should not be here," Noah said softly. Nathan looked surprised. "What do you mean?" Noah hesitated, clearly confused by his own reaction. "I do not know. It just feels familiar somehow." Nathan opened the cabinet and removed the compass. Inside its lid, almost hidden beneath years of tarnish, was the same distinctive family symbol found on the ring and wooden case. Benjamin Carter arrived moments later after receiving Nathan's urgent call. The moment he saw the crest, his expression changed completely. "I have only seen that symbol once before," Benjamin admitted. "It was used exclusively on confidential family agreements that were never recorded in public archives." Nathan carefully placed the compass, diary, ring, and wooden case side by side across the library table. For separate clues now pointed toward the same forgotten mystery. Then Olivia noticed something no one else had seen. Pressed against the back cover of the diary was a transparent evidence sleeve containing a laboratory report. Across the bottom was a single handwritten note that made the room fall silent. The fingerprints recovered from the missing diary page had been analyzed years earlier, and they matched a person who was still alive. Morning sunlight replaced the storm as Nathan Carter's motorcade followed a quiet two-lane highway toward a forgotten lakeside estate that had belonged to his grandparents decades earlier. The fingerprint report remained carefully sealed inside Olivia Hayes's briefcase, but no one could ignore the questions it had created. Whoever had touched the missing diary page had not only been identified years ago, but someone had intentionally preserved the evidence without ever revealing it to Nathan. Noah Brooks sat beside the window, watching calm water stretch across the lake while trying to organize every clue they had uncovered during the previous night. The engagement ring, the hidden messages, the family crest, the childhood diary, and the mysterious fingerprint all seemed connected by an invisible thread. After nearly 2 hours on the road, the convoy reached an elegant but abandoned stone mansion surrounded by towering maple trees whose autumn leaves covered the long driveway in brilliant shades of gold and crimson. Nathan unlocked the front entrance using an old brass key that had remained in his family for generations. Inside, dust-covered antique furniture, yet the building remained surprisingly well-preserved. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating framed family portraits and shelves filled with forgotten books. Olivia carefully compared the original floor plans stored in the estate records with the layout before them. One drawing indicated that the library fireplace had once concealed a storage compartment removed during renovations many years earlier. Nathan and Noah moved several heavy chairs before examining the wide stone hearth. Noah noticed one floorboard near the fireplace that reflected light differently from the surrounding wood. Kneeling carefully, he traced the narrow gap with his fingertips until Nathan located a hidden brass latch beneath the edge. Together, they lifted the panel to reveal a small compartment containing neatly wrapped legal documents, several faded photographs, and unfinished handwritten correspondence tied together with a blue ribbon. Olivia immediately placed protective gloves on her hands before opening the bundle. The first document confirmed ownership records linking the Carter family to the estate exactly as expected, but the following pages described a private trust established jointly by 2 families whose names had never appeared together in any public archive. Noah quietly examined one of the photographs and suddenly froze. It showed Nathan's grandmother standing beside a smiling child wearing a jacket embroidered with the same distinctive crest. Although the child's face was partially hidden by sunlight, Noah recognized the jacket immediately because he still owned it, carefully preserved inside a storage box at his apartment. Before anyone could discuss the discovery further, several luxury vehicles entered the driveway outside. Nathan calmly looked through the front window, and immediately recognized Victor Kane stepping out alongside two attorneys carrying leather briefcases. Victor greeted everyone politely after entering the mansion, claiming he had recently acquired neighboring properties and wished only to discuss overlapping land boundaries. His friendly smile never reached his eyes, especially after noticing the open compartment beneath the fireplace. Nathan answered with equal courtesy while refusing to reveal anything they had found. After several minutes of carefully measured conversation, Victor departed without argument, yet his lingering glance toward the hidden documents suggested he had expected to arrive much earlier. Once the vehicles disappeared beyond the front gate, Olivia resumed examining the recovered records. Her expression gradually shifted from satisfaction to concern. The final folder contained page numbers continuing far beyond the documents now resting on the table. One critical page had been removed years before, leaving only a handwritten notation in the margin identifying its original destination. It had last been transferred to the private library beneath the Carter mansion, where no one had searched in more than 20 years. The return trip to the Carter mansion felt quieter than the drive to the lakeside estate, yet every discovery seemed to weigh more heavily on Nathan Carter's mind. By the time the vehicles reached the familiar front gate, the afternoon sun had begun slipping behind the trees, casting long shadows across the stone courtyard. Without wasting another moment, Nathan led Noah Brooks, Olivia Hayes, and Benjamin Carter directly into the private library. The notation found inside the missing estate records pointed toward a hidden vault beneath the room, a place that had not been opened since Nathan's grandfather passed away more than 2 decades earlier. Benjamin examined the original architectural drawings while Olivia compared them with the room itself. After several careful measurements, Noah quietly noticed that one section of the hardwood floor produced a slightly different sound beneath his footsteps. Nathan knelt beside an enormous bookshelf and discovered a narrow brass keyhole hidden behind a carved wooden panel shaped like an oak leaf. The antique key recovered from the lakeside estate fit perfectly. As the mechanism unlocked with a soft metallic click, part of the floor slowly lifted to reveal a narrow staircase leading underground. Cool air drifted upward, carrying the unmistakable scent of aged paper and cedar wood. The hidden chamber below remained remarkably well preserved. Wooden cabinets lined every wall, each containing carefully labeled storage boxes filled with journals, letters, photographs, and legal documents dating back generations. A single table stood at the center of the room beneath an old reading lamp that still functioned after Nathan restored power to the circuit. Olivia carefully opened the first archival box while Noah instinctively handled every fragile document with the practiced precision of a professional conservator. Inside, they found dozens of handwritten letters exchanged between Nathan's grandmother and another family whose surname immediately caught Noah's attention. It matched the surname listed on his own late grandparents' birth records. Benjamin slowly assembled the correspondence in chronological order until one unmistakable truth emerged. Nathan's grandmother had never arranged a marriage between future generations. Instead, she had devoted years to preserving the friendship and trust between two families after a misunderstanding had separated them decades earlier. Every letter repeated the same idea in different words. Love should never be commanded. Trust must always be chosen freely. Nathan remained silent as he absorbed each page. Everything he had believed about his family's expectations suddenly began to change. Olivia opened one final storage box containing a collection of carefully wrapped keepsakes. Beneath several photographs rested an unopened ivory envelope sealed with dark blue wax bearing Nathan's grandmother's personal emblem. Across the front, written in elegant handwriting, appeared only one sentence. For Nathan Carter, after your heart has chosen instead of your fear. Nathan reached toward the envelope but stopped before touching it. For years he had convinced himself that refusing marriage protected everyone around him. Now every document surrounding him suggested his grandmother had hoped for exactly the opposite. Noah watched quietly without speaking, respecting the deeply personal moment. After several seconds, Nathan picked up the sealed envelope and slipped it carefully inside his jacket rather than opening it immediately. Not yet, he said softly. Some answers deserve the right moment. As everyone prepared to leave the hidden chamber, Noah noticed a small leather journal tucked beneath the corner of the table where no one had looked. He lifted it gently and opened the first page. The handwriting belonged to Nathan's grandmother, but the final line had been added much later by someone else. It read, "When he finally chooses love over fear, tell him he is no longer searching alone." The sealed envelope remained untouched until sunrise painted soft golden light across the windows of the Carter mansion. Nathan Carter stood alone inside the private library, turning the ivory paper over in his hands as though the extra few seconds might somehow prepare him for whatever his grandmother had chosen to tell him years before. Downstairs, the house was unusually quiet. Olivia Hayes had already left for an early legal meeting. Benjamin Carter was reviewing family records, and Noah Brooks had accepted an invitation to continue preserving several fragile journals discovered inside the hidden vault. For the first time in many years, Nathan realized the mansion no longer felt empty. He carefully broke the blue wax seal and unfolded the neatly written pages. His grandmother's graceful handwriting appeared exactly as he remembered. She wrote that every generation of the Carter family had mistaken responsibility for sacrifice and control for protection. She admitted that many relatives believed the future could be secured through carefully arranged plans, but she had learned too late that genuine trust could never be inherited or negotiated. It had to be given freely. She reminded Nathan that leadership was measured not by the number of people who obeyed him, but by the number who chose to remain beside him when they no longer had to. The final paragraph was deeply personal. She confessed that she had never intended for him to feel trapped by family expectations or old promises. Instead, she hoped that one day he would meet someone who reminded him that courage was not refusing love, but accepting the uncertainty that came with it. Nathan slowly lowered the letter, realizing that the promise he had defended for 15 years had never been the legacy his grandmother wished him to carry. He folded the pages carefully and walked downstairs, where Noah was restoring one of the weathered journals beneath the warm morning sunlight streaming through the dining room windows. Noah looked up with a gentle smile. "Did you finally read it?" Nathan nodded. "She spent years trying to teach me something that I refused to understand." Noah closed the journal without asking another question. Instead, he quietly returned to arranging delicate documents across the table with patient precision. Nathan noticed how naturally Noah treated every fragile page with respect, preserving each memory rather than forcing it to become something else. The realization felt strangely familiar. Throughout his life, Nathan had tried to protect people by making decisions for them. Noah protected history by allowing it to remain exactly as it was. Later that afternoon, Nathan asked Noah to accompany him for a walk through the estate gardens overlooking the Hudson River. They spoke about ordinary things instead of family mysteries. Noah described restoring rare manuscripts inside museum archives. Nathan admitted that he had forgotten what it felt like to enjoy a conversation without discussing business or responsibility. Hours passed almost unnoticed beneath colorful autumn trees. When they returned to the mansion, Benjamin hurried across the front courtyard carrying a newly discovered file from the archives. "I found transportation records connected to Noah's grandparents," he announced. "Someone secretly paid for their relocation decades ago, using a Carter family trust." Noah stood completely still, absorbing the unexpected revelation. Memories from his childhood suddenly returned in scattered fragments. He remembered his grandmother repeating a familiar sentence whenever difficult times arrived. She always smiled before saying that some promises were meant to protect freedom instead of controlling destiny. Noah slowly reached into his jacket and removed a folded letter he had carried for years without understanding its significance. Looking directly at Nathan, he quietly admitted, "I think I have known part of this story much longer than I ever realized, and I have already made a choice that will change everything." Noah Brooks unfolded the weathered letter with careful hands, as though every crease carried a memory that had waited years to be understood. Nathan Carter, Olivia Hayes, and Benjamin Carter gathered around the dining table in complete silence. The handwriting was unfamiliar to Nathan, but instantly recognizable to Noah. "It belonged to my grandmother," Noah said quietly. "She asked me never to throw it away, even if it never made sense." He began reading aloud. The letter described two families brought together not by obligation, but by mutual trust during a difficult period many years earlier. Noah's grandparents had once protected confidential Carter family documents after a devastating fire threatened to destroy generations of historical records. Rather than rewarding them with money or influence, Nathan's grandmother promised that both families would always remain connected through kindness instead of expectation. She specifically warned that future generations must never mistake gratitude for debt or affection for obligation. When Noah finished reading, Nathan slowly realized that every assumption surrounding the mysterious engagement ring had been wrong. It had never represented an arranged future. It had symbolized a promise that every important choice must remain voluntary. Olivia carefully placed Noah's letter beside the growing collection of family documents. "The legal records support every word," she said. "Your grandmother quietly established scholarships, housing assistance, and educational trusts for Noah's family without attaching a single condition. She protected their independence instead of controlling their future." Benjamin then revealed another discovery from the archives. Several financial transactions that Victor Kane had claimed as his own investments had actually originated from shell companies attempting to purchase Carter family history rather than land. Their true objective had been access to confidential records hidden beneath the mansion. Nathan immediately contacted his legal team and instructed them to preserve every recovered document while freezing all negotiations involving the surrounding properties. Within hours, Olivia presented enough verified evidence to government investigators demonstrating that Victor had knowingly submitted inaccurate historical ownership claims while attempting to acquire protected archives through misleading legal filings. The investigation moved forward without confrontation because the documentation spoke for itself. By the end of the week, Victor quietly withdrew every remaining purchase offer connected to the Carter properties. The pressure that had surrounded the family for days finally began to disappear. That evening, Nathan stood alone in the library, studying the restored journals that Noah had carefully preserved. For the first time in years, he understood that protecting his family did not require carrying every burden by himself. He walked downstairs where Noah was preparing to return the antique engagement ring to its velvet case before placing it inside the wooden box. Noah held the ring for a brief moment before extending it toward Nathan with a gentle smile. "This belongs to your family," he said softly. Nathan looked at the ring, but did not reach for it immediately. Instead, he looked directly at Noah. "Maybe it belongs to a promise instead of a person." Noah smiled politely, but still placed the ring into Nathan's open hand. "Then you should decide what that promise means now, not what it meant decades ago." Nathan closed his fingers around the ring without placing it on anyone's hand. He understood that his grandmother had never wanted him to inherit fear disguised as responsibility. She wanted him to choose his own future with honesty. As Noah turned toward the front entrance to give Nathan a quiet moment alone, Nathan noticed something he had not expected. Watching Noah walk away no longer felt like relief. It felt like the beginning of another decision. Just before reaching the door, Noah paused, looked back with calm certainty, and asked one simple question that left Nathan completely unprepared. If every promise is finally free to change, what future do you truly want to choose? Noah's question remained in Nathan Carter's thoughts long after the front door closed behind him. For years, every important decision had been shaped by duty, family expectations, or carefully calculated responsibility. Now, for the first time, no ancient agreement demanded an answer. The following morning, Nathan invited Olivia Hayes, Benjamin Carter, and the senior advisors of the Carter family to the mansion library. The restored journals, legal documents, photographs, and letters were arranged across the long conference table, each one preserving a different piece of the truth that had finally come to light. Nathan stood before them with the antique engagement ring resting inside its wooden case. "My grandmother did not leave us instructions," he said calmly. "She left us principles. Every document confirms the same message. No one should ever surrender their freedom because of a promise made by someone else." The room remained silent as everyone listened. Nathan then announced that every private agreement suggesting future family obligations would be permanently removed from the Carter archives and replaced with a formal declaration recognizing individual choice above inherited expectations. Olivia smiled quietly because the decision reflected exactly what Nathan's grandmother had hoped future generations would understand. Benjamin nodded in agreement before adding that preserving history did not require repeating every tradition. Sometimes honoring the past meant allowing the future to become something better. Later that afternoon, Nathan drove alone to Noah Brooks's apartment, carrying only the wooden case. Noah welcomed him inside, surprised to see the usually composed Alpha standing without security personnel or assistants. Nathan placed the antique case on the dining table before stepping back. "I spent years believing that protecting people meant deciding everything myself," he admitted. "I finally understand that real trust begins when people are free to choose differently." He opened the case and gently lifted the engagement ring. Instead of offering it, he carefully returned it to its velvet resting place before closing the lid once more. "This ring belongs to my family's history," he continued. "It does not belong to your future unless you ever decide that it should. I will never ask you to carry expectations that were never yours." Noah looked at the closed case for several quiet seconds before smiling with genuine relief. Every mystery they had uncovered had led to a moment far simpler than either of them expected. Freedom had become the greatest inheritance. They spent the rest of the afternoon walking through a nearby riverside park where autumn leaves drifted across peaceful walking paths. Their conversation moved naturally from old family stories to favorite books, childhood memories, and the quiet satisfaction Noah found while restoring fragile manuscripts that others believed could never be saved. Nathan realized he enjoyed these ordinary moments more than the endless meetings that had once filled every day of his calendar. As sunset reflected across the Hudson River, they paused beside the water without speaking. Neither of them felt pressured to define what came next because the uncertainty itself no longer seemed frightening. When evening arrived, Nathan drove Noah back to the mansion so he could collect several restored journals before returning home. As they entered the library together, Noah noticed one final envelope resting alone on the reading table. It had not been there earlier. The paper matched the stationery used by Nathan's grandmother, but the handwriting on the front belonged to someone else. Only a single sentence appeared across the envelope in careful script. "The last chapter cannot begin until both of you answer the same question together." The unopened envelope rested quietly on the library table, while evening light filled the Carter mansion with the same warm glow that Nathan Carter remembered from childhood. He looked toward Noah Brooks before carefully breaking the seal. Inside was a single handwritten page. Unlike the earlier letters, this one was not addressed only to Nathan. At the top appeared both of their names. Nathan began reading aloud. His grandmother wrote that if they had reached this moment together, then every hidden message had served its purpose. She explained that the engagement ring had never been created to decide anyone's future. It had been preserved as a reminder that every meaningful promise must begin with freedom. She hoped they had discovered that truth before reading her final words. The letter ended with a simple question. Will you choose the future because someone else planned it, or because your own heart has finally found its way? Silence settled across the library. Nathan slowly folded the page before looking toward the mansion entrance where everything had unexpectedly begun only days earlier. Without saying another word, he walked toward the front door. Noah followed beside him until they stood together beneath the same covered entrance where a cold autumn storm had first brought them together. The weather could not have been more different now. Gentle evening sunlight reflected across the stone pathway while colorful leaves drifted peacefully through the quiet air. Nathan smiled with quiet disbelief. "I spent 15 years telling the world that I would never marry," he said. "I thought refusing every possibility made me stronger. Instead, it only kept me from discovering the life my grandmother hoped I would someday choose for myself." Noah listened without interrupting. Nathan continued with complete honesty. "I do not know what our future will become, and I do not want history to decide it for either of us. I only know that meeting you changed the way I understand trust, family, and myself. If we continue forward, I want every step to be because we both choose it freely." Noah looked around the peaceful estate before smiling warmly. "That is exactly what my grandmother hoped both families would remember. She always believed that the best promises were the ones people renewed every day instead of inheriting without question." Nathan opened the antique wooden case one final time and lifted the engagement ring. He admired it briefly before placing it back into the velvet compartment and closing the lid with quiet satisfaction. "It belongs here," he said, "as part of our history, not as a chain for our future. Noah nodded in agreement. The mystery that had begun with a forgotten delivery had finally become something far more valuable than either of them expected. It had restored forgotten friendships, protected family memories, and replaced generations of misunderstanding with genuine understanding. Over the following months, the Carter family donated the recovered journals and historical documents to a museum archive where Noah supervised their preservation so future generations could learn from the past without becoming trapped by it. Nathan continued leading his family's business with a new perspective, placing trust above control and people above old traditions. Their friendship naturally deepened through ordinary conversations, shared meals, and quiet afternoons restoring history together. Neither of them rushed to define what they had found because every day offered another opportunity to choose it again. 1 year later, Nathan stood once more at the mansion doorway where everything had begun. Noah arrived carrying another carefully restored wooden case. Smiling before Nathan even opened the door. This time there were no mysteries waiting inside, no hidden instructions, and no forgotten obligations. There were only two people who had discovered that the greatest promise was never about destiny at all. It was about having the freedom to choose each other every single day.